alternate 10, 10 and 10. Catch and shoot. L action. After L action, snake back, hang, dribble, pull. Okay? Catch and shoot, L action, snake screen back, hezzy pull. Come on, pick the pace up, JD. Get there.
We're going to kick it off, obviously, with our episode of the Athlete Connection. We have with us Sean Marshall. Again, thanks for joining. So I'm not sure if you're aware, obviously, what this is about, but definitely wanted to just provide a platform for just up-and-coming athletes. I know you have a passion for working with young athletes as well, doing what you're doing, that we'll get into in a minute. But just kind of want to really talk with you about your journey, your experience, to hopefully shed a little insight or provide a little insight for some of the up-and-coming kids. So whoever's listening to this show, just kind of maybe lay the foundation for kind of how you got to where you are and kind of that path that you did. So happy to have you on.
Appreciate you for having me on for sure. For me, my road wasn't based off of, in my opinion, having an overload of talent. My dad, I was a football player growing up, and my dad introduced me to basketball while we were off from football, and I didn't want to play. But I was a little bit of a chubby kid, so I think that my dad wanted me to stay active all year so that I wouldn't get too fat. So I fell in love with the game, and I played both leading up until my freshman year of high school, and my dad thought that I had a chance to be a college athlete at one of them, and he wanted me to choose. So I went with basketball, even though I still did want to play football. I had the coaches on my high school football team asking me to still play football, but I went with basketball because it was my real passion. And I was the first freshman in the school history to ever play varsity, so that was like a huge thing for me. Even though I don't think I was ready, I think that my head coach saw that putting me in that position would help me grow at a faster pace and have me be ready for future years to come. So my whole journey, my whole thought process with everything was just to outwork everybody. And I think that that's what I built the foundation of who I was as a player on. And I think that that's what helped me pass a lot of people that were being recruited over me, or that people said were better than me. I just stayed in the gym. So I think that throughout that time, when everybody else stayed steady here, I continued to go in this direction. I was a big man when I first started high school, but I'm about 6'5.5". So I knew that wasn't going to be my position. I wasn't going to be playing power forward or center. So I had to actually change who I was as a basketball player in order to be able to play college basketball at the level that I played at. So that was a big challenge for me, working on my ball handling and just understanding how to become a player that went from playing a 4-5 to playing a 2-3 in such a short amount of time. But I think that once I finally started to pick up the concepts of being a wing or a guard, and I started to shoot the ball at consistently from the outside, I think that the way that I rebounded the ball, the way that I could post up, the way that I was tough because I did play inside early on, it helped shape me into being an overall player.
Yeah, that's cool, man. So talk a little bit about, that progression. So IE native, went to Eisenhower. I actually went to A.B. Miller. So
Okay.
we're familiar with a lot of the same guys in our circle, obviously going back and forth and all those things. But how did you, or talk a little bit about that evolution, right, from high school athlete making it to college, and that transformation? Like, what did that take, and how did you find that out, identify like those things that you needed to do to make that change, to make it to those next levels that you did?
Yeah, it was crazy for me, to be honest, because I went from California playing high school basketball, where when you're really good and you're like, at the time I was the best player in the Inland Empire. You think that that's what life is, until you get to play at I played in the Big East, so those were grown men, you know what I mean? And that was probably one of the things that helped me with my decision of where I wanted to go to college. I remember I was on a recruiting visit. I went to the University of Washington, my first visit, who they're in the Pac-12 now, but back then it was Pac-10. And I played open gym with the team, and they were missing Brandon Roy and Nate Robinson, who Brandon Roy, I can't remember where he was at, but Nate Robinson was playing on the football team. He was like a special teams kick returner. And I did extremely well, like way better than what I thought I would do, playing with guys who were, all older than me. And I remember my dad asking me, like, did you feel like that was pretty easy? And I remember telling him, like, yeah, that wasn't tough for me. And then I went to Boston College the next weekend, and I kid you not, I felt like a chicken with my head cut off in terms of how physical it was, and how it felt like I was a kid. Like when I was playing with the University of Washington, it didn't feel like I was a kid. It felt like they were also the same age as me, but I felt like these guys were 30 years old and I was 15, So it was a totally different experience for me. And for me, I always loved the challenge. So I told my dad right immediately after he watched it, obviously, so he saw what happened. And I just explained to him, like, I think this is where I need to be in order for me to grow into the player that I want to be. And then when I finally did get to Boston College as a freshman, I came in with Jared Dudley, another kid named Stevie Haley, and a kid from Phoenix named Devin Everson. And we had the best recruiting class probably in the last 10 years that Boston College has had. And so we came in with some confidence, but what I quickly understood was how prideful upperclassmen were, how big the adjustment to memorizing plays and understanding plays, because you have so many, and then once you have the play, you have counters to every single play. That was extremely tough. I remember after practices sitting in the coach's office, just trying to understand on the clipboard, moving the magnets, trying to understand all the different options, because it's a huge jump from in high school, you might have 20 plays to now going to 100 plays and having counters with 100 plays, and you have to know them unless you won't play. I think another huge adjustment was I went to Boston College, which is a private Jesuit institution, and the workload from Eisenhower High School in Rialto to Boston College was crazy. Like I think my freshman year, it's a funny story, but I wrote a paper, and somehow my teammates got a hold of this paper that I wrote, and they pinned it into the locker room because it was so bad that they just laughed at me. But I don't think I was prepared coming from Eisenhower to go to I think Boston College is a top 25 school in the country in terms of academics. So
right.
For me, I wasn't prepared for that. So being able to use all the resources, I picked that up pretty quickly because I needed all those resources that are provided for student athletes, of tutors and study hall and all this extra stuff in terms of me just trying to learn how to adjust to being a college student. So I think those three things were the biggest adjustment when playing. And also I started as a freshman. So, but I wasn't the best player on the team. So going from being a star on my team to shooting the ball and having the ball in my hands all the time to now going to being a starter, which was, I had an important role on my team, but I was a role player. So having to, mentally make that adjustment and accept that role that I had, and understanding that I wasn't, some games I would shoot the ball 5 times. In some games I would shoot the ball 10 times, and I had to be okay with either one of those because whatever the team needed from me to win is what my job was as a freshman.
Yeah, that's you hit on every question topic that I wanted to touch base on, because again, like coming from Rialto, Inland Empire, going all the way out to Boston, like that's definitely culture shock, let alone, kind of dealing with that adversity of how to adjust with academics and the basketball side of things. So that's exactly what, I feel is important for those upcoming athletes, especially from this area, right? Because I kind of have that similar journey, like playing soccer wise, like, especially as a black dude, like,
Yep.
you just kind of want to be able to get outside of this area to see, what the level of competition's like and how you match up, but also, okay, like how can I sort of acclimate and adjust in the situation that I'm in to kind of get the best result, put myself in a good situation, right, to succeed. So I think that's huge, especially like I said, for athletes in this specific area. So talk a little bit about, kind of that day to day for you. Like, how did you go about staying or getting adjusted to that grind to kind of make sure that, okay, I know where I want to be. This is kind of what I need to do. How did you evolve? Like, what was that switch that you hit to kind of be able to get adjusted to those plays, kind of, improve on the academics with the papers so they're not posted up in the locker room? Like, what did you have to do to kind of to make that turn?
Yeah, I mean, it was the same thing that I built my foundation on as a person, as a player, which was to just grind. And like I said early on, nothing for me came easy. So this was just another step to my life. Like, okay, you went from being a power forward center to work yourself into a guard. Now you're a starter in the Big East with Boston College. Okay, you're struggling in school. You're struggling to remember the plays. Go back to what got you here, and that's hard work. So I met with the coaches after every single practice, and they would call out a play, and on that clipboard with the magnets, I would go through every single day. And I did that until I had it, and I knew every single option. In terms of school, after practice, I was going to study hall. I picked up a tutor my freshman year that basically saved my life and taught me the proper way to organize everything. I think the biggest thing that I struggled with was the organization of all my classes, of practice, of weightlifting, and having a structure to my life. And she changed everything completely for me to the point where I'm good when I have structure, but I didn't know how to create that structure at the time. I'm on the East Coast. I'm by myself. I have no parents. I get to do whatever I want to do.
Right.
Really, nobody's looking after me except for my assistant coaches just going and peeking their head into the room to make sure I'm actually in class. But being in class is half the battle. You actually have to do well in class, So
Right.
I think that those things of just being persistent and constantly doing extra work helped me to get over that hump. And I started to see results on the court and off the court. My grades improved, and I think I got better at organizing my life and writing papers and studying and taking notes and all these things that I was struggling with just by working and doing a little bit more each and every day in a smart, strategical approach helped me overcome what I was missing at the time.
Yeah, and I think once you figured that out, right, like that was the foundation, the groundwork to excel, and then obviously make it to the pro ranks, because you're gonna have that foundation, like you said, that you're built on.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
And it continues with you with everything that you do. So, I mean, I took that with me to being a professional basketball player for 13 years. I take that with me from being a husband and a father, and everything that I do is built off of that foundation that I built when I was younger at 17, 18, and then I continue with it throughout my life.
Yeah, that's cool, man. So obviously fast forward now to your current role, co-founder of Provision Basketball Academy. Like, again, I know we kind of share that similar, I don't want to say that journey, but that, that passion to kind of help athletes, develop athletes. So talk a little bit about how that kind of translates to what you're doing now, and maybe talk a little bit about, how you're preparing these athletes to kind of set them on that same course that you went on.
Yeah. I knew that I wanted to, when I retired, I wanted to do something that was in this lane of helping to give back and impact other people's lives, because I felt like when I was going through this journey, I learned a lot through the process. So I wanted to help and make sure that if there were kids in my position or men in my position, that I could share my experiences and help them to progress faster than what I did. So one of my best friends is Darren Collison, and he also had a passion for
Shout out to Darren, another IE native. See, we're out here.
We stick together. So um, we sat on the phone while we both were still playing. I want to say maybe I was 33 and I'm 2 years old. He was 31. He was still in the NBA, and I was playing overseas in Turkey. And we talked probably for about 5 hours about different possibilities of stuff we wanted to do. And we came up with this. And so we built a team, and he's really good friends with another dude who went to Rancho Cucamonga High School, Calvin Mitchell. And I brought on Paris Blackwell, who went to Etiwanda and played at University of Washington, played overseas for years pro. And we built this team. And in all honesty, we started out in the Inland Empire, and that's what we wanted to do. We never thought big. It's crazy because we never thought big about what we were doing until we got into it, and then we realized that it could be much bigger than what we were doing. We really just wanted to help guys from the Inland Empire and prepare them and help them be better than what we were. But through the process, we realized that, hey, this thing is growing pretty rapidly, and this is bigger than just the Inland Empire. We can really make an impact doing different kind of things on and off the court with these kids. So fast forward to today, and I think the biggest thing that I try to do, whether it's a 7-year-old kid or an NBA player, is the mental approach of the game. I think that's the, in my opinion, the biggest thing that that kids in this generation or players in this generation struggle with, because they're up so much that I was not up against in terms of the social media and all these eyes and all these expectations and all this pressure that they have, that mentally they're like this. They're so up and down. And my biggest thing is taking it day by day, game by game, celebrating the small wins, but also understanding that you have to improve each day, staying mentally sharp on the court, never content. And these are all the things that I preach to every player that I work with.
And that's I don't want to say funny, but it's ironic that you bring up the mental aspect, because on our previous episode with WNBA player Jillian, she's currently over in playing overseas, but we were just talking about that mental health and how important that is from an athlete standpoint. And she was just talking about it, obviously, just holistically, right? She brought up the Stanford soccer player who obviously took her life, and she was dealing with that. And then you're bringing up the mental component as it pertains to like performance. But like, it's interesting how there's so many different layers when you're talking about that. What's something that you think will help these athletes, especially from a younger age, right? Just put them in a good mental space when you're talking about the development, on the court, off the court, that you think they can definitely use and root in their foundation.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is understanding. So when you're on Instagram or you're on TikTok, everybody's showing you their best self. So that's what you compare yourself to. And understanding that this thing that you're trying to do is extremely hard, right? It's extremely hard. Every single kid's dream in the basketball world or athlete in general is to try to be a Division I athlete, right? The numbers are from the jump against you. You have to understand that, right? But that's fine. But you have to understand through this whole process that it's not going to happen like this. This is not Instagram. This is not TikTok. This is something where you might go into the gym for 2 months and you might not see the reward for another 2 months after that 2 months of work. So if you're looking for I want to get this right now. I want to come into the gym. And it's crazy because we get these messages of kids who want to come train with us, and they're like, yeah, I want you to, make me into a Division I basketball player, and I'm going to come work out with you for 3 sessions, and then that's it. That's to me, that's impossible. You can't, that's unheard of for anybody to accomplish what they want to accomplish within 3 sessions.
And almost disrespectful, because it's like you don't understand the commitment and that level of grind that it takes, even for you to get to where you're at. Like, okay, well, all I need is 3 days. Like, come on, man.
But that's the thing that I think the biggest part mentally that you need to understand is that this is a race, but it's a slow race. Or like I always tell my kids, like, there's no elevator to success. I love this, right? You always have to take the stairs. The stairs is the long way, right? And that's the way that you have to go in order to get to where you want to get to. Now, don't get me wrong. There's people in the world that are extremely talented, and they sometimes are able to take the elevator, right? But for most of us, this is something that you have to constantly, every single day, chip away, stack great days together, get in the gym, have great practices, watch film. You grow every single day just a little bit, and then you get to the point where now you have a product that's ready to go to the next level. And then once you get to the next level, now you have to do the same thing all over again to try to get to the next level. It never stops. This is a constant thing that continues to go. You can never be content with anything that you're doing. So mentally, if you're looking for instant success, this is not the place for it. It's just not. And that's what I try to explain to all the parents and all the kids that we work with. It's like, it's impossible for you guys to just get this done and want it to be done like this. But it's hard for a parent or a kid to understand that, because parents are doing what? They're investing all this money. So now they want to see instant success. Kids are now looking on Instagram and they're looking at everybody, what appears to be instant success, but it's not. So it's a tough generation for these kids to grow up in. But for us, if we instill in them that this is a process, and to mentally attack each day and try not to look at the end goal. You could set an end goal, but you have to attack each day and break down each day and win each day to get to that end goal.
Yeah, and that's huge. And I tell my athletes when I'm doing my private training sessions for soccer or anything else like that, I'm like, there's that 1% that are just, freakishly talented, the LeBron James of the world, the Messis of the world, all those elite athletes. But they're talented, and the Kobe's of the world, right? But those are the ones that still have that foundation to grind. Yeah. And even if you're not as talented, like, you still have to put in that work to develop those details. I call it those details, right? The fundamental details. If you don't have those fundamental details that your foundation's built on, you're just wasting your time. But from a mental standpoint and a performance standpoint, you're almost doing a disservice for yourself and your kids, because, like you said, there's this false expectation to where I see what this person's doing. Therefore, if I just follow their Instagram feed, or if I try to emulate what they're doing, then I'm going to have this result. And I think that is probably the biggest opportunity, to where if you can figure that point of difference out, it'll allow you to kind of be in a better situation to develop, to succeed, to kind of accomplish those goals. So I think it's all encompassing that, it will help when you're talking about development.
Yeah, for sure. 100%. And I think that that's why we built Pros Vision, because this, especially in the basketball game, you have so many basketball trainers in the world. And it's like, we really went through this process. So everything that we're sharing with you, we actually did it. So there's nothing that a parent can tell us about any part of the process that we didn't experience. You know what I mean? So I think that that's where the level of trust is, that it starts there. You know what I mean? So a lot of our parents understand, okay, Darren, you went to UCLA, and from the Inland Empire, a small place, and you ended up at UCLA, then you went to the NBA. Sean, you were at the Inland Empire, you went to Boston College, you ended up a pro. So I think that the level of trust is there, and we established early on that, listen, if you're going to be with us, then you need to trust in us. And then everything that comes along with that, you can give us your thoughts, but it's not going to be, hey, this other person told me this. That's fine. If you want to go with the other person, then feel free to do that. But for us, we know 100% that this formula worked. And then through that formula that we figured out all the bumps in the road to smooth those out for your kid. So we don't know everything. We're not saying that. But at the end of the day, if you can find somebody that went through what you're trying to accomplish and they can teach that, you hit the lottery. Not every former athlete can teach you in the proper way. They might know, but they might not know how to teach it. But if you can find both of those things together, you've hit the lotto. There's no price worth that, because your kid is going to be so much further ahead on the mental approach of the game than the kid that's working with somebody that played high school basketball, that might know the game very well. Don't get me wrong, but he only played, or she only played, high school basketball. She can't share those experiences with you of getting to the next level because she never did it.
Yeah, and I think you hit it. Trust, right? Like, you have to be able to understand and trust that you guys have their best interest at heart. But again, it's like, you've been through it. Like, there's not many people that can go and, pay that forward because you've done it. So that's huge. So I know you got to run, and I appreciate your time. But again, this is exactly why I set up this podcast. We set up this podcast because I want to be able to kind of expose that experience and, extend your network with, really combine our networks. Because again, we have a scholarship recipient, Jacob, who we were just talking with yesterday, but he's a basketball player and he has those same aspirations. So it's like, what's the blueprint, right? Like, what are things that I need to do or figure out in order to kind of, again, reach those goals? So I'm definitely going to have him tune into this episode because, we talked about exactly what you're talking about, and you have that firsthand experience. So once again, for all our listeners, don't forget to like and subscribe. Sean, if you don't mind, share your Instagram platform, or obviously your Provision information if anybody wants to reach out to you guys.
My Prosvision, the IG is Prosvision, PROSVISION _ and my personal Instagram is Sean Marshall 007.
Cool, man. I appreciate it. So like I said, hopefully we can welcome you into our network of mentors so you can definitely help lift up or encourage some of the kids that are listening and help them reach their goals. But again, thanks for listening. And that's a wrap.
Appreciate you for having me, man.
Alrighty, have a good one.
You too.